This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio is brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Oh, yeah.
Kurt Angle, the man.
Welcome to the program. He's Peter Bowfin. I'm Angelo Viola. The rest of the cast, you'll meet them later on, maybe, if they're nice.
I think
we'll see.
know. They might not even know them. You never know. They might know them already.
We'll see. This is important one right here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's damn true.
And, well, hang on. We have to add one more. Dr. Stephen Cook is going to be joining us later on.
He might just outshine us, as he usually does.
Little fish talk with the doc in the house.
Can't wait.
Going to be fun.
Can't wait. Going to talk about some different stuff today, too.
Yeah,
So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Also, I want to find out, he's got to be thinking of starting his fishing season, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
Like
He's in the right zone for it, that's for sure.
By the way, I did not know, and I'm reading this about him. Every time that I read about him, I learn something. He's a chair of the board of technical experts for the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission and fellow of the Royal Society of Canada.
Come on now.
I did not know that.
Every time he comes on, we have something new about him. Right? Maybe he just keeps getting these
Better
new
and better.
titles.
Gets better and better. Anyways, he'll be joining us shortly as soon as we get through some of the other important stuff. Like what? How about
FisheryCanada.com. How about that?
Why don't we do that?
Why not?
Why don't we do that? There it is right there.
There you go, people. Look at that. You always point to that walleye, the pickerel, don't you?
Well, that's because number one, eh?
Still number one?
That's number one.
Nice.
Not even close.
Wow.
I think it probably all others combined.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
We'll ask the store manager one day. We'll
when
get
he's
some stats.
busy. He's busy right now. You can't bother him. He's got this new stuff going on out there that we could talk about here in a minute. We'll talk about it later on. I don't want to get too much into this. All I need to tell you is that shop.fisherycanada.com awaits you.
It's the place to be.
Now.
It's the place to be.
Awaits you. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, just take a look. You'll like.
Listener feedback.
Yes, my friend. There's another good name there, right?
Greg Schieffer, GX1BN. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Schieffer,
There's a dash in there, but you did good.
Okay, Greg Schieffer -GX1BN via YouTube.
Wow.
Says, I really enjoy the show. Any chance that pike will grace the print? Oh, okay.
I've been waiting for this
grace
pike
the
hoodie.
print on your hoodie merch. Absolutely.
Okay, finally.
Hell yeah.
Finally.
I believe there's 2 new species coming up. One of them is pike. Don't know what the other one is. I can't remember. But anyways, there's 2 new ones coming up and many more to come. So what a lot of folks are saying, what a lot of people are thinking, that this is going to be a collection that people will want to have one of each eventually.
Who's saying this?
People are saying this.
I've heard it too.
Wow.
Yeah. People are saying,
Interesting.
you know what?
Wow.
I'm going to start collecting
Well,
them.
it makes sense.
Why not?
You know, you get a different color and a different species.
Exactly.
And you've got every day of the week covered. You wouldn't have to wear anything else.
You open up your closet, and boom, every species known is right
All
there.
nice and neat.
And talk about
OCD
comfortable.
neat. You know.
Oh my God! Even these. I mean, it's not a hoodie, but it feels comfortable.
Everything you got. The hats even fit well. You know.
Like you said the other day, you want to be naked underneath when you're wearing this.
Wow.
Oh, hell yeah. Why would you put it undershirt?
Hell yeah.
I'm just saying.
Are you naked underneath all that?
I can't tell you that.
Oh my.
Anyways, it'll be coming out soon. I'm
There
told.
you go, Pike.
I don't have
The
a
Pike
date.
hoodie announcement.
Don't have a
Woohoo.
date. Don't have a time. But I am being told.
I like it.
That people are working on it as we speak, along with the other species.
Lucius.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Conservation Corner, Mr. Bowman. We do have to. You know, I'll be so happy. Not because I don't love working with the Invasive Species Center folks, but I will be so happy when one day we don't have to make these public announcements about.
Well, I think
grass
you
carp.
and I will be under the ground a little bit by then.
Do you think?
Oh yeah. buddy. Yeah, it's going to take a long time.
I'm thinking there's going to be a breakthrough at some point. That
Wow.
we'll have it in control.
Wow.
And we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay.
That's what I'm hoping.
I'm hoping too.
At some point.
So we don't have to work underground to do this. Then.
Exactly.
Right, guys like us aren't too good underground.
Not at all.
We do much better up on
Well,
terra firma.
that's questionable too. Anyways, grass carp, this little critter that is upon our doorstep that could really wreak havoc in the outdoors, as we know it, fishing in particular, and it consumes vegetation at an alarming rate.
Which is never good.
Which is never good, and that affects all of our other sport fish.
And it's not natural. So
what you need to do,
you need to go to asiancarp.ca and learn how to identify these critters. And then and only then, when you have it on your phone, when you're out fishing, you can look and say, hey, that's the thing Ann and Pete were talking about. I got to get a hold of asiancarp.ca, the Invasive Species Center, and MNR or whoever, and report it.
There you go. Now, from one very serious piece, which we just did, the grass carp, to one that I'm going to take a little more tongue-in-cheek, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Apparently in the news...
It's quite the title here, isn't it? Yeah.
Canada's outdoor recreation economy, I have a hard time even reading this, now worth over $100 billion.
Wow.
Wow, we're doing good. It's got to be a lot of... It must be you and I influencing
I must
people.
be out of touch. Because I
100
used to,
billion. What
I
the
used to be in this industry, and I got to tell you, it weren't nowhere near that.
God, that's obviously there's more than
Dean,
fishing and hunting.
Yeah.
Dean, I'm assuming you're the one who put this on Fishing
I put this
Camp?
on here. The last couple episodes, you've complained that the news has been very negative. So I wanted something that would just bring everyone up.
I bet you Dean made that whole thing up then. He made this
Yeah,
whole thing
you
up.
didn't say it had to be real. It just...
Fakenews.com.
Yeah.
Fakenews.dean.
See?
Let's just be happy.
That
Yeah,
works
let's be
now.
happy.
Now I'm going to read it with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Now, you
So
watch
need-
me go now.
Now you need the button that says, don't worry, be happy. That's what you need, that song.
By the way, it's
refrain.
brought to you by somebody who knows a thing or two about the industry. J&B, your outdoor superstore. If you want a Princecraft boat, you want a Mercury motor, you want a combination of the two, there is no place to go other than J&B Cycle. Check them out online first, and then make the trek into one of their stores. By the way, just a reminder, if you're going to go online, it's not J&B online, it's just JB Cycle and Marine.
There you go.
All right.
Beautiful.
Ontario's largest Princecraft Mercury dealer, and probably beyond Ontario too, I'm going to say.
Yeah. You know what? They're good. They have a great lineup there. So
a recent report from, and who doesn't know these people, POW, POW,
that's not a great
POW,
acronym.
Protect Our Winters. POW, who hasn't heard about that?
I
group?
haven't. I have to admit, I have
What?
not heard of these guys. No, I haven't.
Oh my God.
I protect John Winters when he used to work with you. I always protected
Come
his
on now.
integrity and stuff like that, but I don't know about these guys.
Anyways, they reveal that the outdoor recreational sector is a significant contributor to the Canadian economy. Well,
Yeah,
you know what? We've
sure it
always
is.
said that.
Yeah, it's in the billions.
And we break it down even farther. You know, outdoors as a category, yes, but we broke it down even farther and say fishing is a big contributor to the economic benefits of this country because it's part of our culture. Fishing, and who does not go? Who can honestly say
They've never fished before.
that they haven't been touched
Oh,
by fishing in one way, shape, or form? There's people who haven't fished as adults, but at some point in their life, they went fishing.
yeah.
Or
For sure.
at some point in their life, they have somebody in their immediate circle that fishes. Everybody.
Absolutely.
So that's not.
How much is fishing, Dean? How much is the fishing segment?
The fishing segment, so the whole thing is worth $101 billion, allegedly.
Excuse me.
101.6.
Just
We wanna get
fishing,
specific.
like recreational, we're talking, not
Yeah.
commercial involved.
Yeah, yeah.
It's 8, so it's 4.9 if you're just including
4.9
angling.
what?
Billion.
Billion.
If you're just including angling, according to Stats Can. And then if you include hunting, trapping, and shooting, you're around 19 billion.
So
How much was
outdoor
fishing?
Recreation.
4.9.
something.
So let's call it 5 for the sake of argument. So recreational fishing is 5.
Yeah.
And then what was it? Trapping, shooting?
Hunting, trapping, shooting brings it up to around 19.
So they're all worth 5 each.
Sure, yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
nice round numbers.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you got to add in snowmobiling. You got to add in anything outdoors, I guess. That's what these guys are trying to do.
Skiing would be a big one.
Would be a big
Who?
I would think.
Skiing?
Skiing,
I think
yep.
that'd be big.
That's huge.
Whistler, yeah.
Massive.
100, almost 102 billion is what they're saying.
But who's amongst friends that called it 100 billion? What's a billion or two?
I
I don't know
I'd
who
like to see
got
the
these
breakdown
numbers.
of that. That'd be nice
I
to
don't
see.
know where these numbers came from, and I just, I'm like the news guy, the news guy at the news desk every evening at 6 o'clock. He didn't make those stories up, right? He's got a teleprompter, and he just reads. He comes in at 5:15, and the makeup thing happens, and he gets into the suit, and he sits there at his desk, and he reads the news. He doesn't make the shit up, okay? He just reads it. Well, I'm kind of like that right now. I feel like one of them right now. I'm just going to read this stuff.
Take home your paycheck, and that's it.
That's it. As soon as I'm done with it,
Bye-bye. Next
thank
story.
you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good evening. Catch
I'm
you
Rink
tomorrow night.
Dinkelmeal,
Exactly.
and have a good night.
I just think these numbers are a little inflated, Dean.
That's a lot of
But
money.
our dollar, everything's inflated. Everything's like 5 times the price. So maybe that's
Oh,
why.
is this Canadian or American dollars we're talking about?
Well, it's
This is Canadian. But
Maybe it was an American survey and they converted it to Canadian.
Yeah.
That's what it
That probably
is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense. Anyways,
The best part, though, is the sector's contribution rivals that of major industries like oil and gas.
oh, absolutely.
Agriculture.
Oh,
and
for
forestry.
sure.
Now, I will say that our government is not utilizing oil and gas the way we could be. So maybe the numbers are so friggin' low that they're putting it in there and they're saying, "You stupid asses, let's pull some oil out of this ground and make some money and put everybody to
All right.
shame." But
So here's the deal. If you are or know anybody or have any connection to the POW, I'm assuming
that's a horrible.
Are they an
initially.
incorporated company or anything, Dean, or how does that work?
I am not sure. They're a collection of concerned citizens.
Okay, well, if you
Oh,
are
that's starting to make a lot more sense
if
now.
you are a member of the POW or Protect Our Winters. Oh, Protect Our Winter. I'm trying to read something through here, man. I'm trying to make sense of this. Protect Our Winters. Anyways,
All
if
right.
you or anybody you know or a member of your family is connected with the POW, I welcome you to the program. I would like to get you on the show, and we could go over some of these numbers so that I don't have to be cynical or suggest that maybe the data is not quite up to snuff.
Or how about just send us the data,
Because-
if nothing else. Just send us
Send
your
us
breakdown of the data.
I'd like to know where the data came from.
That too.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing, because you see, in my industry, I'm used to people, for example, saying, "Yeah, I've got 10 million viewers on my fishing show on television." That's on a bad day. It could be 20 million some days.
It's a good guy.
I'm
That's
used
a
to
good
that.
Show.
Except
I like
when-
that show.
Except when you challenge the data. Say, "Oh, well, that's wonderful. Could I see where the information came from?" Right? So I'm kind of cynical because
That's from I'm a bunch of bullshit.com.
There's
a
what we
bunch of
should.
bullshit.
Thank you very much. I was hoping and waiting for you to push that button. Anyways, thank you, Dean, for bringing this wonderful story to us. I think it's
very positive.
outstanding.
It's a nice
And it just
change.
shows you that you're not just another pretty face sitting around waiting
Come
for
on now.
stuff to happen, right?
That's right.
You know what's going on, and you deliver the goods, as usual.
Yep.
Fan question of the week brought to you by Fish Finder Mounts. Now some serious business, fishfindermounts.com.
Look at that
Come on
guy.
now.
Look at that
the
guy.
hell's
Brought to
he
you by
doing?
that guy. But that's fishmindermans.com.
What's he doing?
Question.
Well, he's probably got some
a
of that
stick.
$101 billion. He spent it right there. There's a
Sitting
couple of
there,
items right there.
There's a stick in his hand over the fire.
Like that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
Brought to you by fishfindermounts.com. Fast fan question of the week from Cal LaRoche.
Hey.
LaRoche or LaRoche?
La Roche.
LaRoche?
What?
What are you, all of a sudden,
Ah,
you're from
je parle
Rimouski?
Je parle français très bien. Je comprends un peu.
What are you, from Rimouski all of a sudden?
I drink Rimouski every Friday night.
Cal LaRoche via email. Now, he doesn't qualify for anything. We're not doing anything more. We're not giving anybody anything
Well,
anymore,
no one
right?
on YouTube is writing in.
Well, it's their loss, not mine.
hey.
I can't do anything about it.
I agree.
I can only
Well,
do...
actually, people on YouTube are writing in. It's a lot of the same people.
Oh.
So unless we want to start
Yeah.
rewarding people over again.
No, we don't want to do that.
Well, you know what? If they're doing a good, I mean, if the question is better than any other question out there,
The email questions are just they're well done. People on email.
Well, let's read it. Let's see what this is. Cal wants to know, he says, hey guys, I'm planning a backcountry portage trip through Algonquin Park, my favorite part of the world.
Come on now.
Later this summer. And I've been wondering, how deep do you really have to go to hit untouched, high quality, two very important words, fishing? Is it one tough portage, three tough portages, or do you need to really vanish into the map to find those legendary lakes? Curious what your experiences have been in places like that.
well, it's going to be up to Angelo because I'll tell you, Cal, I have not done
You
it.
did.
So.
You did one with me.
Oh yeah, but that
Shot it.
one, one, and we didn't go very far. That's for sure because of the cameras and all that stuff.
So here, I can only give you my experience with this whole thing. When we want to just have a nice, light 4 or 5 day wilderness experience, then we used to go into a minimum 3 portages. Like if you don't, if you're not heavy lifting for at least 3 portages, then you're really not. In my opinion,
You didn't come here to hunt now,
you
did
didn't
you?
come here to hunt. Thank you very much. You're still in urban centers, as far as I'm concerned. So we always put that minimum 3 portage thing on the maps. So if we wanted something relatively light in terms of not really killing ourselves, 3 portages with at least one of those portages being 1.5 kilometers. Close to 2 kilometers, and then the other ones could be
500 yards.
300, 400.
So this is all can be done in a day. It could.
You could,
But you'd be pushing her?
But you'd be pushing her,
Okay.
right? But that was always our goal. On these light portages, we wanted to start early in the morning. The reason I say you push her, because inadvertently what happens is, you're all meeting at the Maynooth Hotel, so we can all leave at the same time. And sure as hell,
I love it.
We got a little late and things got carried away, and you didn't start till 3-4 hours after you planned on. So sometimes you had to overnight on one of these portages until you got to your actual base camp. But every once in a while, we would challenge our manhood, because it's the only other way I can describe it. I would challenge that. And the 2 lakes that we used to go into for this purpose was
Give
Dixon,
us the juice. Give us the juice. Dixon. Okay.
and Lavier.
Oh, there you go. There you go, Cal. Right
Now,
there.
I don't know what they're like today to get there, but at the time, the portages were not your typical portages, that are all marked it's uneven terrain, but it's good solid terrain, gravel terrain and stuff. However, getting into Lavier, which can only be described as a training session for anybody trying to qualify to be a SEAL. One of those SEAL op guys.
Yeah.
You were, for the most part, the portages were loon shit, and it's the only way I can describe it, because it was going through marshes. Like up to your waist.
It's hard enough to walk through it, just to walk through it.
Yeah. When you're carrying canoes and backpacks and stuff, just incredibly challenging and long. So either or is a great experience. I mean, especially if you're going with people who if you're going with the happy camper, Kevin Callan, that's a whole different ballgame, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just going with friends or relatives or whatever, you don't want to go on one of those incredibly wild ones like I just described, because you have to be motivated for that. There's got to be motivation.
I'm assuming Cal might be because he wants untouched, high quality fishing.
Oh, you want
right?
untouched, high quality? I guarantee you. Dixon, especially.
So you got to do 3 lakes at least.
Yeah, Dixon is 1 lake past Lavier, and and sometimes we wouldn't do it. We would stop at Lavier. That's how bad getting to Lavier would be, right? Dixon's right over yonder.
Yeah,
but,
that's it, boys. We're tapping
boys, we're good.
I need a beer.
And the fishing in that lake used to be spectacular. They had both speckles and splake, but in most lakes in Algonquin Park, the splake outnumber the specks. There's a lot of lakes that don't have specks. They only have splake. But most of the lakes that have both, generally the speckled trout are outdoing this, or the splake are outdoing the speckled trout.
Right.
Because they're stocked,
right,
so, and they're replenished every year.
Yeah.
But in Dixon, man, oh man, I'll tell you, those speckles in there, they floss their teeth with splake every day.
Oh, nice.
They wait for the helicopters to drop those nets for the splake. They wave them in.
Feed bag is on, boys. Let's go.
Big speckled trout.
Hey, there you go.
The other drawback to that, if you're making a trip like that, you also have to be prepared to get eaten up alive by bugs. I mean,
he's going to the end of the summer.
I can't even describe
it. Or later this summer, not land.
But the time to go to those places to really experience it is at ice out.
Oh, yeah.
For a number of reasons. First of all,
no bugs
it's cool enough that you can stand doing all of this physical activity.
Yeah.
Because when it's like 80 degrees out, you can't make it. You can't do it.
Dude.
So generally you go when ice is just getting off the lakes. And secondly, that's the only reprieve you get from bugs, man, in that park.
Yeah.
It's the only reprieve.
Because otherwise it's just nasty.
A few days after that, oh my God, it is just breathtaking.
And then brook trout closes in September, sometime early September.
And usually it's still warm.
Yeah.
No, it stays
this days, So.
Yeah. Anyways, that's
there you go, Cal.
From my experience. If you can get to either one of those 2 lakes, I would suggest that you do some training of some sort for carrying. No, seriously, for carrying stuff.
Yeah.
The difficulty is carrying stuff when you're walking on hard trails, even though they're uneven. It's not that bad to manage what you bring in. When you're wading through swamps,
oh God,
it's really difficult, like really tough to do. So
hopefully Carl goes in. He can give us another email on his success story. That'd be great.
Hey anglers, want to turn your next catch into a competition? Well, check out Anglers Leaderboard, the new fishing platform that lets you track your catches, join friendly competitions, enter tournaments, and see how you rank against others in your region. Use your phone and the photo measure board to automatically detect length and species. No more guesswork. Whether you're fishing for pleasure or to compete, ALB makes every catch count. What's your ALB score? Well, get Anglers Leaderboard today and start climbing the ranks. Visit anglersleaderboard.com to learn more. This next segment brought to you by Sail, your home for all good things outdoors, especially fishing. Rods, reels, boots, gloves, hats, underwear, you name it. If you need it for fishing, Sail has got it.
You said that right, son.
I gotta go over there in the next couple of days.
What you getting?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I don't even know why I mentioned it, because then all of a sudden halfway
you
through.
make me jealous.
Well,
right?
I know.
Now I'm going to have to hang around there, wait till you go in and watch what you're buying.
If you don't have a Sail store close to you, you can simply go to sail.ca. That's SAIL.ca. And basically the store in your home. How's that?
Yeah.
They even have some discounts going on for web
Lots
sales.
of discounts.
Up to 60% off on select items. You can't go wrong at a Sail store, that's for sure. All right, Dr. Stephen Cook, Fish Talk with the Doc, right here in the house. Biology professor at Carleton University, among other things. 1,200. I still can't get over that number, Stephen. 1,200 peer-reviewed.
1,200. Papers. That's a big old number, isn't it? Sounds even bigger that way.
Recently inducted into the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame for contributions to recreational fisheries and science. Welcome to the show again. I'm not even going to welcome you anymore.
Hello, Doc.
How are you?
Good,
We're
going
good.
good. Interesting notes I've got here from Stephen. I guess there's things that we need to address. First of all, I want to ask you, before we get into that, how is the season shaping up? Are you guys got all your rigs ready to go? Are you out in the water yet, or what's going on?
Yeah, I was on Big Rideau this morning. I'm still warming up. It has been a cold one, we've been looking at bass reproduction, bass spawning, as we do every year. And things started out all right about 2 weeks ago. Things were warming up. It was nice. You could wear shorts and sandals, and the bass thought it was nice too. And they started spawning. And then we're now coming up on about a week of brutally chilly, downright cold, and dark days, not a lot of sunlight. And we started to really see that yesterday and today, where water temperatures have gone down 5 or 6 degrees, and a lot of bass are bailing from their nests. It's simply too cold for the dads to do their work, and these low temperatures actually just kill either the fertilized eggs, so they don't hatch, or kill the baby wrigglers. They're little egg sac fry. So
what does that all mean? Tell us what that means for us as bass anglers.
We're pretty far along in the season, but I would say it's shaping up to be, at least in Eastern Ontario, although I think this cold snap stretches across the Kawarthas and beyond. I would say not a particularly good year for bass reproduction. I think, and that happens, right? This isn't too many anglers on the water. This isn't, hard to blame a cold snap on climate change, although we do see a lot more variability in weather temps. But this is, an example of, and we've talked before about water temperature. Water temperature means everything for fish. So even those little bass that succeed and may not get killed over the next couple of weeks, they're going to have a growth penalty. That cool water is going to slow them down. There's not going to be as much food for them to eat. So they'll be probably smaller going into winter. That leads to winter mortality. So all in all, it's shaping up to be a pretty dismal year for bass production here in Ontario.
And we'll notice it, in 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years.
Stephen, so in your opinion, has the majority of bass attempted and or spawned, and it's now up to the babies, or is there still some more gonna happen when it gets warmer again?
Yeah, so we've been working on Big Rideau, and it's an example of a reasonably large water body. It's not the St. Lawrence, but it's pretty big. And so that means there's a larger mass of water to both get warm and cool. So those changes are mediated a little bit by that, but nonetheless, we've still seen temperatures drop. It happened really sort of right at the peak of spawn. So some of those fish, if the hormones stay in the right mood, if you will try again. But this is a prolonged cold snap. Usually you see, 1 or 2 cold nights, and then they're back at it. So I don't know what happens when you throw this temperature governor on them for essentially a week straight. And it's going to take a few days, even when the cold snap's over, for things to start heating up again. So I just don't know when they're going to flip and say, you know what, I'm not in the mood. I don't have the energy resources. I'm just going to wait till next year.
What was the water temperature this morning when you were out there?
11.5 degrees Celsius. They start spawning around 14, but when I say 14, I mean stable 14, not 14 at 4 in the afternoon and 12 in the morning. 14 is sort of that trigger. So a bunch of them spawned, and then it slowly just has kept creeping below. And the further below we go, the more fish are bailing from their nests. So we're now 11.5 degrees. 12 we usually think is a magic number. 12 does pretty bad things for baby bass and developing eggs, and that's what we're seeing.
Any other species that are apt to be affected by this cold snap?
It's certainly going to push back more or less everything. We were remarking today how lifeless the nearshore area looked.
Wow. That's not good.
In fact, there were some,
I'm just saying, we're just about to embark on our 40th season of shooting, and that's not good news for us to hear. Let me tell you right now.
Yeah, like crystal clear, beautiful water, no vegetation in sight because it's been cloudy because of the cool water. Normally we'd start to really see the vegetation starting to push, but normally we'd see bluegill, pumpkin seed, perch, rockbat, and we did a week and a half ago. They were there, and they've all bailed to that deeper water again. Because again, they're slow. They don't want to be pike food. And the pike follow, and all that's left up there is the odd lonely bass. And what's interesting, we've seen a few nests where the dads are gone and the eggs are still there. And that doesn't happen. When dad goes bye-bye, the predators rush in and eat them.
Right.
And there's so few predators around right now in those shallows. Yeah. Now, just to be clear, that does not mean that those nests are going to be successful because the male needs to fan them to, keep them oxygenated. And as soon as they do start to move, things will find them. So they will get demoed, but that rarely happens. Usually dad goes bye-bye and, 30 seconds, 2-3 minutes later, there's a bluegill feeding party.
So. Wow. Are you studying both largemouth and smallmouth, or just smallmouth, or what are you?
Both, but this in particular right now, we've been doing smallmouth work. So when I talked about the patterns I've seen over the last week, that's all smallmouth.
Okay. That's crazy.
Reading some of the notes once again that we looked at before we went on with you, you want to talk about this very interesting, fascinating part of fisheries, which most of us don't usually think of, because science is all about fish and fish species, habitat and
fisheries,
managing fish. But we want to talk today about the human dimension of fisheries, which you're obviously involved in. The study, especially that Eastern Ontario study that you put out here, is kind of fascinating. So can we just start into that part of it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, let's talk about people. And it's interesting. You used a B word to introduce me today or reference the department I'm in. And the B word is biology, right? And biology is the study of the diversity of life. And sure, people are part of that, but we usually don't think about our sort of behavior as being part of biology, right? We are living organisms, but that's left to sociologists and economists and psychologists to sort of study what we do, how we interact with each other, and how we interact with the world. But one of the things that we're learning more and more these days is that people matter. People matter when it comes to thinking about ecosystems. We are part of ecosystems. We aren't separate from. We also tend to be the cause of most environmental problems, but also the solution to most environmental problems. So if we put biology in a box, so if all Steve does is go out and study the biology, I've got useful information, but if that information is ignored by managers, if it's dismissed by anglers, if it's irrelevant, if there's barriers to its adoption or use, all that biology will just sit on the shelf. It'll just sit in the library and languish. And sure, it's nice to generate basic biological information, but we've got enough environmental issues. We've got, we want to make sure that we're managing our natural resources in a sustainable way. So how do we connect that biology to the people? So that's what I want to talk about today.
Yeah, but you said biology, we automatically assume that it relates to animals or fish.
Yeah.
But you're saying that really we're in that grouping as well.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? But the medical profession, the doctors, right, the human version of you, they don't call themselves biologists, do they?
No. I think it's really about thinking, I'm in a biology department, but I have students that come and never touch a fish. Some of my students come in and only interview people. And so I think when we think about what it means to be a natural resource professional, yes, it's, the ecology and the biology matter, but so does that human dimension. And so I would argue that I'm in the wrong department, or more likely, I would say that our department has the wrong name.
Okay. All right.
Well,
let's talk about humans, because you did a very interesting piece of work recently in Eastern Ontario, in the Kingston area and north of there, and some fascinating results, which Pete and I were both kind of surprised and shocked. We know those waters relatively well, although probably haven't spent near the amount of time on them than we have in other parts of the province. Yeah. But we've always looked at them as very fertile and wonderful recreational fishery
numbers
opportunities.
Of fish,
quantities, maybe not quality sometimes, but certainly numbers. But now, tell us what your findings have said.
Yeah. So the reason we set out to do this is because and this isn't meant to critique our friends at the Ministry of Natural Resources, but the methods used in their monitoring programs are just simply not effective for evaluating the status of bass populations. They're fantastic at looking at how the walleye are doing and how the lake trout are doing, maybe how the perch are doing. But beyond that, and certainly for largemouth and smallmouth, they're not very helpful. And that's because they rely largely on gill nets. And you set gill nets in places where you can set a gill net. For example, you can't set a gill net in a backwater, swampy, largemouth bass bay. Right. They'll encounter the odd smallmouth in those kinds of things, but there's some lakes where they will go where largemouth and smallmouth are plentiful, and after a week of sampling, their data would suggest there's zero of either species in the lake. And we know that's not the case. And even in the lakes in Eastern Ontario, that's routinely a finding of their netting.
Explain something to us, though, because you're just assuming we understand. Why can't you place those gill nets for sampling in those areas?
They would get tangled and they would get destroyed, or they would get stuck. And if they get stuck in there, then they end up doing what we call ghost fishing, where you've gone home for the day, but your nets continue to fish and fish and fish in perpetuity if there's some of those gill nets stuck in place. So it's kind of the worst kind of littering you can imagine. So
right, because I'm assuming these kill fish too. The gill nets, are they?
Yes,
they're
gill
killing.
nets. Gill nets are lethal.
Right. So there's a constant kill going on there if they're stuck or something like that.
And you don't so you don't leave them overnight or a week or a weekend.
Sometimes you do a 24-hour set, but if they got stuck there, they would be there literally until the netting material broke down or got so clogged with fish or dead fish that they wouldn't fish anymore.
So you're saying that they can get stuck in a 24-hour period, stuck enough that you can't pry them out of the bottom?
If you set a net in and there's a bunch of stumps around, they could get stuck in minutes, really.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't grasp that.
No.
So, all right. So they can't put them in areas where they may know that, let's take largemouth, for example, where they know that largemouth are there. So how do you find out what the population is doing?
So old school would be creel surveys. So we hire a couple students. We have them go out at various times, intercept and interact with anglers. The anglers tell them what they caught, how many, what they let go, what they harvested, how big they are, and so on.
Because
the problem
because anglers are forthright and honest and never lie, right? That's right. Okay.
The challenge, though, is it's super expensive, and you can really only do one lake well. And so, sure, you could do that on Big Rideau Lake, but that's 2 summer students with minimum wage right now for 4 months. You're looking at least $20,000. So then you need, they need a boat, they need a vehicle to pull the boat, they need the gas. So you're looking at probably $50,000 conservatively before you even look at the data to do a creel survey. So one of the approaches that we've been looking at as an alternative is asking anglers how the fishing is, but doing it through time. So instead of how did you do today, It's, if you fish this lake for the last 20 years and we break it into 5-year bins, how do you think the fishing is today relative to 5 years ago? What about relative to 10 years ago? What about relative to 20 years ago? And you basically stop it however long you've been fishing the water body. So we've got some folks that can give us that information going back 50 years. Some of the old timers that have been really fishing for a long time. And what we see is the reason that you need to sort of ground truth it by going back in time is that there's always a shifting baseline. If we only asked people that went out today how their fishing was, they're going to comment on today. What we wanted them to do is to reflect on how it is today relative to the past.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And we found some pretty interesting things. We found that across the board, I think there were 12 different lakes, and that included the Rideau waterway itself, the Rideau River. We found that across the board, declines in largemouth and smallmouth abundance and average size.
Yeah, we were shocked on both of those.
That blew my mind.
And Stephen, are you at liberty to tell folks the lakes that you sampled?
Yeah. Off the top of my head, it included places like Newborough and Appinicon and Mississippi and Charleston, and those are Big Rideau, Upper Rideau. So a lot in that Eastern Ontario block.
Yes, and anybody listening that doesn't know those lakes, they are classic bass lakes. They're a little bit north, they're not the swampy Lake Scugog, boggy sort of. They're just perfect waters. There's deep water, lots of rock, lots of wood, lots of everything that both species would love. So, and I'm assuming good bait fish sources in there too, in those lakes. Yeah, so that's just to give you an outline.
And so to a person, they all reported what they felt was a declining fishery.
Yeah, and that was something that we've been doing some work with M&R lately, and we've been told that we just don't have a lot of evidence of declines, and we always counter and say, well, you also don't have a lot of evidence that their populations are going gangbusters anyway either. So this is the first time where we've sort of reached out and asked anglers. And we're not the first to use this approach. We're actually modeling it after what's been done in Florida for bonefish. So bonefish are another example of a species where anglers interact with them way more than any biologist. And for bonefish, there's no good way to count them. You can't set, if you set gill nets, if you set seine net, you're going to come up empty-handed almost always. Sure. So they've been relying on anglers to provide information on general population trends through time. And again, they've been able to go back and get guides that have been fishing the Keys for 50, 60 years. So they're able to, again, have that long time series. Yeah. And so we basically took that approach and brought it to the bass fishery in Eastern Ontario.
So we've got history that will tell us that this type of data collection is accurate. Basically what you're saying, right? It's not like, because to me, honestly, I know I was just joking a few minutes ago, but the last person that I rely on to give me the intel on a lake is another fisherman. Let's be honest, okay?
Yeah.
But you're telling me that we have reason to believe that this type of sampling is as close to accurate as we can, because as biologists, as you just said, there aren't enough dollars or hours in a day to do this kind of collection. So we have to rely on that, and you're saying it's relatively accurate.
It tells us important information about the trends, and those are worrisome trends, right? Things are going in the wrong direction. Right. So in other words, it's not going to, you can't translate that into pounds of bass per acre or anything like that. Yeah. But what you can do is say, wow, there's a lot of people that are all telling us the same thing. That gives us high confidence that this is real and not, if the data literally looked like a shotgun blast, where, 30% of the people say they're increasing, 30% say they're stable, and 30% decreasing, you throw up your hands and say, I think we're good. In this case, the fact that we saw consistent declines. And then the other thing we saw were a couple break points, and I don't have the paper right in front of me, but there were certain lakes in certain time periods where there would be a big step down. And the fact that, again, we can look at the variance around that. How many people are bang on with that, versus how spread out the responses are. And the fact that we had strong alignment when you saw some of those sort of step declines also is good evidence that they're all queuing in on something real that happened. Wow. What happened? We don't know. But it should make the fisheries managers twitch and say, maybe we need to look at this more closely.
What about you and your team from Carleton, Stephen? Have you noticed in your studies now, you're probably looking at spawning fish and maybe they all come into the shallows, but maybe 20 years ago there was twice the amount coming. Have you come up to that conclusion too?
Yeah, it's consistent with our 25 plus years of snorkeling data, and I'm extending that to Dave Phillip, who is my PhD advisor, who's been doing this for a lot longer than I am. But we're seeing declines in reproductive success. So the number of nesting male bass that successfully raise broods to completion. So we're seeing, and what's that driven by? Well, we're seeing nearshore habitat alteration from continued development, a good dose of preseason bass fishing. Maybe there's over-harvest issues as well. The data we do have on harvest rates suggest that about 10% of the bass in those Eastern Ontario lakes are harvested. 10% of the fish that are angled are harvested, 90% put back.
Right, which that shouldn't hurt anything, right? That's a good ratio right there.
Yeah. Again, it depends how many though. If there's 100 people that go out and do that, that's one thing. If there's 200,000 people that go out, and each keeps, and they collectively keep 10% of the bass.
Good point.
That's a big number. So it really depends on effort.
It sounds like we're getting closer and closer to what we've talked about with you on this program for a long time, and that is, to get away from that fish management notion that we can kind of put one or two rules in place and govern the whole area with that one set of rules. And and this is a good example, because I'll tell you, I would be hard pressed to tell you that a lot of the lakes we've been fishing over the last, 5-6 years are doing poorly. I think in a lot of cases we found that they've improved. And that's not science, but it is an example, a small sample size just with us. So maybe it's time that the MNR or whatever fisheries management group is in that position to look at this and say, well, you know what? Maybe we should look at Charleston Lake on its own and take some of this information and actually, look at it on a serious level and say that 4 or 5 fish limit that we've got on, albeit only 10% are being harvested, but maybe that's too much, like you just said. And the only way that you're going to get that fixed is to start dealing with each individual area.
You know what? It's like the bass in general in Ontario, aside from Northern Ontario, which is open all year, and then Zone 20, which is now got a different regulation. Everything else is... That's it. Six fish from either third Saturday or fourth Saturday, and go for it, and that's it. So you're right. Why not? Because walleye. Oh God, we've seen with walleye how many regulation changes there has been. You have to look at every zone you're going to. You have to look at your size limits. You have to look at everything. They've cut all the limits down too, which is great.
But bass, it just seems like it's
free for all. Kill them all. Metallica.
I think it could be done in a way where it was, it doesn't need to be every bass water body in the province. But what if we took the top 20 or 25 bass fisheries, and we could come up with that, that list. And I think the three of us, if we each generated a list, they'd be awfully similar. Yeah. These are the places where, where we hold tournaments, where, they're go-to destinations, where the bulk of the bass fishing pressure happens. So it doesn't have to be 1,000 lakes that we manage at that level. But I think we do need to think about designating our key bass waters and thinking about really focused strategic management of those.
Yeah.
Something else
I love it. I'd love to see that happen.
Dawned on me too. Now, is this, do you think, are there similar studies done on, say, walleye that we could sort of look at that information? And the reason I'm asking, is this just bass that in those areas has declined, or did those anglers tell you, yeah, my perch fishing has gone for a dump too, or I can't find, those nice big walleye that I used to fish in that area? Is it just bass that they're talking about?
We only asked about bass, which now in hindsight, wishing we did more.
Yeah.
But maybe there are other things. See, that's again the problem. We went narrow, and we have a number of lakes, but only 2 species. Maybe we're missing something there. We're missing the fact that they've all turned into trophy pike fisheries.
I was just about to say
the
pike.
walleye are going gangbusters,
Exactly.
or the crappie fishing is amazing. So that's as one thing changes, something else changes, and it's dynamic. So
yeah, I think where it would really pay off dividends when we look at bass and say walleye in that same body of water. Not necessarily 2 different anglers, but I think the pressure and certainly the techniques are totally different. And maybe this would help us better understand that. And I'm bringing us all back to catch and release, right? Because even to this day, we still get questioned from people. Well, how do you know they're surviving? Who says that when you put them back, 95% of them swim away? Like, we're still faced with that every day. Maybe a study like this would kind of help us be able to say yay or nay. For example, if a body of water is down in 3 or 4 of the top species, based on the same intel, then we as bass anglers can say, hey, I'm not going to, say told you so, but it's not just bass fishermen.
Right.
This is something more than just catch and release, or this is something more than just recreational fishing. Maybe we need to start looking at what other interruptions are there in that particular body of water that, we maybe should put a spotlight on that for a little
pollutants
while.
Or anything like that, right? Could be anything.
You know? So, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the importance of what you guys have done. This is a great study.
No, this is good. It's an eye-opener, man.
For us, it absolutely blew us away. Just totally blew us away. But, if we had that comparison, it would be really interesting to see if this watershed maybe, because all those lakes that you just talked about, it is part of a watershed, right? They're all kind of interconnected.
They're almost, a couple. Yeah, we've got the Rideau, we've got the Gananoque watershed and the Mississippi and the Tay. So there's a few mixed in there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Now this isn't brand new to you. Didn't you do a big? In fact, I remember reading it was like a first of during COVID. Didn't you guys do some kind of similar creel?
One of his 1,200 peer-reviewed papers, maybe.
You know what? We spend so much time talking to anglers and other stakeholders, managers, and so on. And sometimes we turn those into studies. And during COVID, we wanted to know what was happening with, those early shutdowns. And so we did some online surveys. We had over 1,000 responses from Ontario. Ontario was the focus, and we asked people, what were they doing with their time? Were they fishing more or less relative to the same period the year before? And we saw very little evidence of decline. But I want to point out what we were doing was targeting people that were residents of Ontario. So when we saw massive reductions in fishing effort, which we did see, that was driven by the tourists. The tourists were not coming up. Where in Eastern Ontario, there's huge numbers of American tourists that normally come up. They did not come up during those first couple years of COVID. They weren't allowed to cross the border. And so those of us that were here were still getting out on the water, getting some nice fresh air. And we were also spending more money. We were just doing it online. So if you decided you weren't going to go fishing so much, you sat at home and, ordered off sale online.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we were worried about, are the tackle shops going to go under? But that did not happen. People kept purchasing, just like we do in the winter, right? Thinking about when we do get to fish, so we're prepared.
It's a sickness.
I got to tell you a story. I was in retail for a number of years in this industry, and was able, fortunately, knock on wood, to feed my family from it. I cannot tell you how many times in my office I'd say, how in the hell is this possible? And I'm going back a few years. GM just laid off 12,000 people. A quarter of my customers are unemployed, and my sales went up this week. I used to it just behooved me. But I think fishing is recession proof. I think anglers are that insane that it doesn't matter. You're going to cut in other areas, but man, I got to get my fishing done. It was crazy. We were busier during strikes and lockouts and shutdowns of factories than we were when they were up and running.
That's crazy.
And you know why? Because they had more time in their hands to go fishing.
Yeah,
time.
That's a great stat.
I'll never get over that.
One of the other things we asked the anglers about during COVID was what they liked or disliked about how it was handled, right? So, and there were a couple messages. So these are examples of things that we can tell managers moving forward. Hopefully we don't have other pandemics on the horizon, but I think some of these are more general learnings. One of them was we need to do a better job of communicating. They kept pointing out how great of a job OFAH was doing at communicating with anglers, yet the ministry itself was doing a pretty poor job. And so during a time when you want to be able to sort of lean on and trust government, that's problematic. So open, frequent communications are key. And I think that applies across, probably every issue, but natural resource management in general. When we're going to change things, the why, the when, how, give folks an opportunity to comment and have some back and forth. Just changing rules. And then just, you open the regulation book and you see all sorts of new rules, but you have no understanding of why.
Right. Why exactly.
And nobody buys in.
But that's their MO, right? It's a government thing, I'm sure, because, and God bless all of the M&R people, because we've had nothing but great experiences with all of them. But, even when we try and book them for a TV show or a podcast or whatever, there are so many levels of bureaucracy
hoops and
that
loops
has
to go
get
through
in the way that we just give up. We say, hey, we're trying to help you here. We're trying to get you to communicate with your constituents, but honest to God, it's heavy lifting. We got easier places to.
We can never, and Stephen will understand. So we'll tell this to the audience. We could never get anybody, and let's say a conservation officer or somebody, and even though they might not like what's going on, but we can't go on a whim, and Ange and I just start off the cuff questions to them. They have to have every question written out, and say, okay, you can ask these. Yes, you can ask these. No, you can't ask that. No, that's what it's like. You know what I mean?
And for us, it just takes the wind out of our sails.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it should be a free for all when we bring them on.
No, we don't want to bamboozle them.
But if they can't talk about something, then say, listen, I can't talk about that, which behooves me anyways, because the minute you tell people I can't talk about it,
there's the flags going up.
Okay, all right, so you can't talk about that. So, and that's why, yourself, Steve, that's why they get such a bad rap, especially, anybody involved in obviously, conservation officers are top of the list. That's why they're looked upon as the bad guy.
And I guarantee you, they would all like to be able to answer those questions from their heart. They'd say, "Oh yeah, let's do this," but they can't. Their hands are tied. This episode is brought to you by Anglers Leaderboard and its photo measure feature. Anglers Leaderboard makes every catch count by integrating seamlessly with their patent-pending AI-enabled fish measurement board. Now you can automatically measure catch length and detect species in seconds just by using your smartphone camera. It's fast, accurate, and reduces handling. So now you can release healthier fish and keep fishing for the big ones. Learn more at anglersleaderboard.com.
So then I'm a little confused. So people like you are the science who goes out, and I'm sure M&R has equivalent, right? Departments like yours. So you go out and you do the work scientifically proving that this is an issue. But then it's got to go to somebody who manages people in order to make the change that's required to get over this hump that we're having, like in Eastern Ontario, for example. So you've done this great work on all those lakes we just talked about. Wonderful work. And we have now proof that there is a problem there. What happens next? And how long is it going to take in order for something to happen?
Yeah. So we've been very fortunate to also be able to interview managers. So we've actually interviewed fisheries managers across the country. So not just here in Ontario, but across the country, working in all of the, relevant natural resource management agencies you can think of at provincial, territorial, and federal levels. Okay. And there's a couple things we hear across the board. One is that change takes time, especially in a bureaucracy, which these are, government, and so that's just a reality that the institutional sort of, institutions move slowly. Government institutions move particularly slowly, and change is always difficult. So even if you have new science, you smack down something that's transformational on the desk, and even if those individuals buy into it, there are reasons why it can't be actioned. Wow. So that's part of it. Trust is part of it as well. And we publish our papers in scientific journals, and so that brings some level of credibility. But so for example, fisheries managers tell us if there's two papers, one written by a government scientist that works for M&R, and one by an academic, they're more likely to embrace the one written by government, because a government scientist, because they're sort of one of them, if you will, right? So there is a trust issue there, and we work. We do the best science. We collaborate with M&R folks and other government folks so that we try to break that down. But trust is huge. If folks think that if they don't know you, if they don't understand your work or your values, how you approach science, that can be a limitation. And then the final one is doing work that's relevant. So sometimes scientists, I would say often scientists, think we know what managers need, or decision makers need, or society needs, and we run off and do the science, and we smack it down on the desk of the manager, and the manager says, "That's interesting, but here's the question I really needed an answer to, and you didn't do that. So this isn't relevant to me. It's not the fire or the fires I'm dealing with right now." So it gets pushed to the edge of the desk.
Wow.
And the poor little fish that we are so insanely
and all that brilliant
chasing.
work that these guys had done for that particular subject. Yeah. Wow.
The reason I asked about the time span is because sometimes, as especially some of these situations are critical, right? You can fix something if you can get at it and get it done right now. But if too much time goes by, rebuilding that gene pool from tiny little numbers is really tough to do, as we all know, especially when you add all the other elements into
things. Can be getting worse and worse. The more you delay it, they can get worse as it goes, right? So
any place else in the world that deals differently with this type of management that you know of?
Oh, it's a great question. Places where there's strong engagement between a community-based approach to management. So yes, managers are the managers, but they involve other groups in that process. And to be clear, M&R is well set up to do that. They have the Fisheries Management Zone Councils. I would argue that they don't meet often enough, and that they aren't used to their full potential. But that's the special sauce, bringing people together that care about the resource, that have different types of knowledge, different experiences, lodge owners, guides, multi-species anglers, specialist anglers, folks that deal with maybe more the water quality or habitat side of things, all coming together and talking about what matters to us and how do we get there. And that's a change too, right? It's one thing to say, oh, we're going to get together and talk. It's another thing to then try and move that forward to action. And that's where the government control sort of, similar to the communication piece we discussed, you're essentially taking control away from the government and putting it in the hands of the people. And that's something that there's always a bit of a struggle with. Potential for special interest groups to get in there and perhaps guide things a little bit more than should be the case. But good communication, and communication isn't one directional. It's not just M&R or Fisheries and Oceans Canada telling us how things are. Communication, as you know, is two directional. It's bi-directional. It's exchanging information. But you got to create pathways for that to happen. If there's no pathway to exchange information, then there's no opportunity for learning, no opportunity to develop mutual respect and understanding, and nothing happens. Nothing moves forward.
Something you've got, excuse me, that caught my attention, and talk about communication. This is probably an area where it should be made vital if it's not already. You've got a survey about cottagers and how they feel about anglers on the Big Rideau, especially how they feel about anglers fishing in and around their docks. Can we just, because I know you've got to run here in a couple of minutes, and I don't want to overlook this. I think this is really cool. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So we asked cottagers and bass anglers, and there were different. There's cottagers that are bass anglers and so on. So, but when we broke things down, it really didn't matter what group you were in. Everybody said the biggest issue around bass and, in this case, Big Rideau Lakes, was fishing docks. All the cottagers and residents put up their hands and said this is a huge issue. All the anglers and tournament participants and organizers put up their hand and said, wow, this is a big issue. And it trumped everything else by a lot. It just glowed. It was...
Well, we laugh because 50 years ago we had the same issues, okay? But nobody seems to listen. Nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to... So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
But this is a classic one. What does this have to do with biology?
Right. You're right. Yeah,
it has
absolutely.
nothing to do with the protection of the resource. It has nothing to do with the sustainability of bass populations. It has only to do with people. And it has to do with perhaps issues of respect, understanding legal entitlements. It might be other forms of entitlement, if you will. But it's certainly not fish biology.
No, it's not. True. But it plays a huge role in that whole... I find it
does tell the people the bass live under docks. I will say that.
It does do that.
Both largemouth and smallmouth.
Oh, for sure.
And sometimes pike and sometimes muskie. Okay.
Anything.
No kidding.
How do you feel about that issue yourself, Steve?
Yeah. It's a tough one. I, as somebody that was previously a dock owner on Big Rideau of all places, I always, whenever I saw, the tournament mornings, and go down there and lean off it was a boathouse, so I could look down and always ask them how they were doing, and had really pleasant interactions always with anglers. If somebody was casting and, wrapping their lures around the mooring lines, or if my kids were swimming and somebody was running a chatterbait between them, I might have issue, but that rarely happens. Anybody that knows what they're doing certainly isn't going to fish where there's children or people swimming.
Exactly.
And the professional anglers, they aren't going to wrap lures around mooring lines. It happens pretty infrequently. So,
Right.
And the reality is that nobody owns the water. We all own the water, right? And so again, it comes down to respect, and that means coming together and understanding. So some of the things we learned that would help diffuse this situation was for tournament organizers to do a better job of communicating to the residents on a given lake when the tournaments are and what to expect, and also providing them with a phone number so that if you've got somebody that's fishing your dock and you're sunbathing and somebody's dragging a jig and pig across your chest, there's a phone number you can call to the tournament organizer to say, hey, boat number 26 has moved, I think is behaving in an unprofessional way, and there's a mechanism to report it. So instead what happens, there's no knowledge. After the fact, people complain, they don't know who to complain to. There's no opportunity again for knowledge exchange, learning, and the conflict just continues.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you know Big Clear Lake in your by Arden? You know that area?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I was fishing there. A very quick story. Hans knows this. I've said it 1,000 times. I'm fishing, and I went into a bay. This guy goes, "Hey, you know what Don Cherry says, eh?" And I says, "What's that?" He says, "If you fish my dock, I throw a rock." And I thought, I got a kick out of that. I thought, hey, that's good. I don't think Grape should say that, but he might say that. That's funny. Like that. And I looked down at his feet. He's got a pile of friggin' rocks right there on his dock. I said, "Oh shit, here we go." And after about 10 rocks, and I called him every name in the book, and I called the cops on him and the whole 9 yards. But that happens out there a lot. They don't like it.
Yeah.
Some of them are very adamant on not fishing their docks.
Is there a world where a tournament organizer, because it happens not with docks, but it certainly happens with other restricted areas in our waterways, is there a time, a place where we see a tournament organizer saying, okay, here's the new rule. Docks are off limits. You do not fish docks. I mean, we can't fish, certain dams. We can't fish certain water
marked off buoy,
exactly.
Sanctuaries, etc.
I mean, why couldn't you do it with docks?
Yep, it would totally turn down the temperature on a lot of things and get folks working together, because there's a lot of issues of mutual concern: water safety, healthy water quality, high quality habitat, and a sustainable bass population. All of those things are of mutual interest to those folks. But when they spend all the time focused on the issues such as fishing docks, or the other one is parking, but we won't get into parking today.
Oh boy!
But congestion and so on at boat ramps. Yeah. Or you could even go halfway. What about, the Saturday of the tournaments, no docks, Sunday docks. Let people know what to expect. So if they want to, if they don't feel comfortable sunbathing or doing whatever on the dock on one day, they've been, and again, it's been communicated, and it allows them to make informed decisions. So again, I think communication as the approach for trying to rectify some of these challenges.
It's too one-sided, boys. We have to say, if I can't fish your dock, you can't fish off your dock. No fishing, you can't even do it. I don't give a shit if you own that dock. You don't know the water. You can't fish off that dock.
You're being a hard-headed angler.
Damn right I am.
One way only. One way only. Stephen, we could talk to you all day. You know that, but I know you've got to run, and we really appreciate the things that you do. I know
Always.
sometimes probably in your line of work, in your field, sometimes you wonder if people do appreciate the things that you do, but I can tell you, most anglers that we know, they would high five you every time you do something like this. So,
yep, for sure.
Great work, my friend.
Thanks a bunch, and appreciate both of you and helping to share, how things work in the science and management sphere with folks. And as always, if people have questions, thoughts, you know how to connect with the Fish in Canada comms, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Perfect.
Just before you go, when's your first fishing trip? First fishing day?
We've been doing some tagging, pre-spawn tagging work. So I've already The rod has been bent, but we've got some Bowfin work coming up. We're putting telemetry transmitters in Bowfin in Charleston Lake in a couple weeks. Have either of you sight fished Bowfin?
Oh, I caught one about 3 weeks ago. I dropped a Ned rig right in front of his nose and watched and just ate it. Like, oh, they're so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
my
shot a
God.
show there for Bowfin.
Yeah, on Cranberry.
On Cranberry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Cool. Yeah, good lake.
Yeah.
So they're great. There's a species that's underutilized.
Nasty
let me tell
fish, man.
Yeah.
Well, we're dying to hear the results from that.
Yeah, that'll
one.
be
That'll
interesting
great.
for sure.
Yep. And the why there, it's another one where we were hearing that a lot of local anglers were persecuting them, intentionally killing the bowfin because the perception is that they eat the bass and the pike.
Right.
And the answer is we have no idea. So we're going to do some science, look at habitat overlap. We're going to do some diet studies to see what they eat. And so we'll be able to bring some science to the table to say, you know, there is overlap in their diets. There isn't. There is overlap in their habitats they use. There isn't. And if there is that a bad thing? So my guess is probably not.
What doesn't overlap out there?
You're gonna need a chainsaw to cut open their bellies. Those things are tough as nails. Those things, eh? God.
Thank you, my friend. Enjoy the outdoors. As soon as it warms up, I know it's scheduled to be going up in temperature. Hopefully, in the next few weeks. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
See you,
Take
Stephen.
care.
Dr. Stephen Cook, Fish Talk with the Doc, my favorite part of the show. There's
It's
no
so
doubt about
interesting,
that.
no matter what. And that was great that we didn't talk about the fish more than we did about people. You know, really, that was a good
true.
angle to it.
I wanted to
like
talk
that.
to him about that new technology that is out there right now where people can sort of measure and count their fish and let them go. And
Right.
I wonder if that kind of maybe
You know what? Though
would be something that you look at on
it
certain
should
lakes.
be looked at.
On certain lakes only.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the lakes he's talking about. You know, maybe
bring that
maybe,
in and then-
maybe we can get that extreme where you say, hey, it's in trouble. And it's in trouble and it's going to affect us. So maybe we need to do something about it.
Or you hand those out like to like a certain amount of people who you know are on the water every day, and then you get like a sample of what they're out there getting, right?
Great. Now that's
Kinda nice.
a real accurate form of data collection. I didn't want to say anything, but you know, from the television industry for years, we relied on people that were using a diary to report on their viewing habits, right? And most of the time it was proven that these diaries were being filled in at the end of the week because they know they have to fill it in. And so they, at the end of the week, they try, okay, Monday at 5. What did no, I watched the cooking show. And so, you know, we started questioning the validity in that type of data collection. And I think when you ask anglers, first of all, there's a portion of it that probably is untrue. Because anglers are like that. And then there's another portion that, you know, you're relying on somebody's ability to recall. And so whenever you do that, there's a certain amount of inaccurate data collection.
Yeah, you have to do it after every day, even if you're on a week-long trip. You have to do it every day.
But if you could do it like Dean just mentioned, you know, it's on a certain
make it
body of
easier.
water.
Take a picture
I'm
with
going to
your phone.
take, you know, the top, the first 50 anglers that apply, that fish that lake. I'm going to give them one of these, and what we're talking about is a board with and you take pictures with your phone.
Anglers leaderboard, they're called.
Anglers leaderboard. Thank you, Dean. I was struggling, and I appreciate you.
Dean to the rescue. Eh?
And you take pictures and release the fish right away, and that data is all collected. It uses like a face recognition mode.
And it's accurate data, apparently. You look at it, you say, no, they can't do that. But you see the measuring boards. It's got all these little QR codes all over it.
It's a lot more accurate than asking me, how'd I do last year on Charlton? I think it was pretty good, I think. You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is the way to collect data moving forward.
Yeah.
Anyways.
The future.
Wonderful. I always love talking science with Dr. Cook.
Yeah, man. He's good.
That are it. Don't forget, fishingcanada.com, the gateway portal to your next fishing adventure. If you haven't been there lately, you need to go and see all the good stuff that's there. And while you're there, of course, why not win something free? Huh?
Come on now.
I like that.
Why not get something free?
Free is good. I haven't got a freebie in a long time, if anything.
No.
So, yeah, it's nice to
pay for everything.
You know.
It's all there on the contest section. Do we have a... I think we do. Let's do something special.
Something different?
A bonus
Something
code?
different, Dean.
Okay.
I'm going to do something different right now. I'm going to give all of you folks a bonus code that will allow you to go and get 2 rewards.
Something different.
Totally different. 2 rewards.
2 rewards.
2, not 1.
Come on now.
2.
Oh my God.
So first of
we're
all-
going bankrupt here.
Well, listen, you got to help the people.
Wow.
Okay.
So first of all, I'm going to give you a bonus code that will allow you to get 10 free entries into any of the contests that are on fishandcanada.com.
Brought to you by J&B Cycle and Marine. Those
Wow.
contests, stuff like that.
There's a bunch of them. J&B Cycle is probably the leader in that
Come on
section.
now.
I don't have that in front of me, but I'm sure coming from you, it's got to be solid.
Right there.
Is it there
Someone
All right.
in the bottom of that sheet. Well, you got as many sheets.
Well, go
here.
ahead. While I'm looking. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. You're there.
So the bonus code today is the word science. Why? Because we were talking science with Dr. Cook. So the word science, but here is the stickler. All right. It all has to be capital letters.
Give me a hell yeah.
That's right.
Hell
That's
yeah.
right, kiddies.
All
capital
caps.
letters. And it's SCIENCE, all upper caps. You
So
take that.
when you type that in, would you hold the shift key down and do it, or would you hit cap lock?
No, I do the shift hold it and like that. I know. Call me crazy. But at my age, I can use the exercise, right?
Yes,
I get it.
true. Yeah.
The word is science, all uppercase, SCIENC. Now, and you get 10 free entries
Come on now.
if you use that word in the contest section of fishandcanada.com. Now, on its own, that is a remarkable reward. I would say call it a day, drop the mic, walk away, it's over.
You used to be a salesman, didn't you?
But I'm not saying that. See? I'm not saying that because if you use this same code, the word science, and you happen to be in the marketplace for a beautiful, high quality, hoodie, fishing hoodie,
Come on now.
or a t-shirt, or a hat, or pants, or whatever
Come on now.
that you can find at the store on
on now.
fishandcanada.com. If you use the word science, they have apparently a bonus section there too, or a discount code section. You put the word science in there, you, my friends, are going to get a discount.
Give me a hell yeah.
That's
now.
where the hell yeah, come on now.
Now I dropped the mic.
Come
So
on now.
double-ended. The word science.
You should have got into sales when you were younger.
I
You know
wish
that?
I had.
You should've.
Sometimes I really.
I think you'd have done all right at that.
All right, that are it. Boba's falling asleep over there.
Oh,
So I
God.
gotta have a-
Yeah,
He's always
get
my
to that.
conscience. I look at him and I know where I am in the show. I know how it's going. If it's good, bad. I just look. He's like my barometer.
Can you tell what he's thinking though? Right now.
Oh, I know what he's thinking. Trust me. Thank you. That's it. That's what he's thinking right now. On behalf of the entire team, including the lovely, the talented Boba, right there.
Come on now.
Nick came through the room here earlier on. That qualifies.
He gave us a couple of like
That qualifies for him to have been here. And of course, Dean Taylor, the producer of this wonderful
Come on
program.
now.
He's Peter Bowman. I'm Angelo Viola. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next week. This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio has been brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Center, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures.